Hi, I'm Marilyn McPhie, and I have a story for you. This is a story that comes from Scotland. Once there was a lass who went out at the cry of dawn to wash her face in the morning dew, to make her skin soft and lovely. But the lass did not return. And her father frowned and her mother wept, but still the lass did not return. And finally, the younger sister of that lass declared that she would go out and she would not rest until she could find her sister and bring her home. And so her father gave her his blessing and a gold coin. And her mother gave her blessing and a packet with a bobbin of yarn, a silver thimble, a golden needle, a wee sharp knife, and a packet of pins. And the girl set out. She went to Mischanter Hill. She had heard that there was a castle at the top of the hill and that an evil wizard lived in the castle, and she thought this would be a good place to look for her sister. When she came to the hill, she saw that the path going up was steep and rocky, and so she rested for a while at the foot of the hill. Along came a man who was pushing a cart full of pots and pans. And the girl said, "It must be very hard to be doing the work of a horse." "Oh, it is," said the man, "but I have no horse and no money to buy one, so I must push the cart myself." "Well," said the lass, "I have a gold coin. Take it and buy yourself a horse." "Thank you," said the man. "I have been pushing this cart for many a long and weary day, and yours is the first kind word I've had. I have a bit of advice for you. If you are going up to the castle to see the wizard, well, here's my advice. What you see and what you hear may not always be real. I also have another piece of advice for you, and that is to turn around and go home, and don't go up there at all. But I doubt that you'll take that advice." "Indeed, I will not," said the girl, "but thank you." And so she started up the hill, but about halfway up, she came upon an old man with ragged clothes full of rents and tears, and he was attempting to mend the tears with thorns, but the thorns kept breaking, and even when they didn't break, they were not very good for mending the tears in his clothes. "Oh," she said, "you have a hard job mending your clothes with thorns." "Indeed," said the man, "I have, but I don't have anything else." "Well," said the girl, "I have a paper of pins. Take them and mend your clothes with those." "Thank you," said the man. "I have been standing here for many a long and weary day, and yours is the first kind word I've heard. If you are going up to see the wizard at the top of the hill, I have a piece of advice for you, and that is this: gold and silver are a match for evil. I would also advise you not to go up to see the wizard, for if you do, he will surely put a spell on you. But I don't suppose that you will take that advice." "Indeed, I will not," said the girl, "but thank you." And so she continued on up the hill. When she reached the castle, she boldly pounded on the door, and the wizard himself answered the door. "I have come for my sister. Have you seen her?" she said. "Perhaps," said the wizard. "Come in, and I'll go and look for her." And he led the lass into a small room where she sat in a chair, and he left. All of a sudden, she could hear the crackling of fire, and suddenly the room was filled with flames and smoke, and she jumped up to run from the room, but then she remembered the advice that she had, that what she would see and hear would not always be real. And so she knew that it was an enchantment from the wizard. And she sat back down, and soon the flames and the smoke disappeared. But then she heard a voice that was unmistakably the voice of her sister, calling for her to come and find her. And the lass jumped up and would have run out of the room, but then she thought it must be another spell of the wizard. So she sat back down, and she took the bobbin of yarn and wound it round and round her arm and tied her arm to the chair so she could not leave. And soon the voice was gone, and she cut the yarn with her wee sharp knife. A moment later, the wizard came back to the room. He seemed very surprised to see that she was still there. "Have you found my sister?" she said. "Perhaps," said the wizard. "Follow me." And he led her to a room where there were 7 statues, all identical and all in the very form of her sister. "One of them may be your sister. If you can choose the right one, you may leave." But, well, he left the rest unfinished. The lass looked at the statues. How could she ever tell which one was her sister? They were identical. But then she remembered the advice that she'd received about gold and silver being a match for evil, and so she took the silver thimble and she slipped it on the finger of the first statue. It became black and tarnished, so she knew that that was not her sister. And she slipped the thimble on the fingers of the next 5 statues with the same results. But when she slipped that silver thimble on the finger of the last statue, well, it turned a bright and shiny gold. And so she knew that that was her sister. "Come," she said, and she took the hand of the statue, which turned into her sister, as alive as ever she had been, and the 2 of them ran from that castle. But of course the wizard was not happy to see them go. And so he sent a wolf after them, an enchanted wolf. And though the sisters ran as fast as they could, the wolf was coming closer and closer. And the sister remembered the advice she had been given. And so she took the golden needle and she held it out in front of her like a sword. And when the wolf leapt, she shoved it into the space between his 2 eyes, and the wolf dinged down dead. But of course the wizard did not give up that easily, and so he came after them himself with his cape spread out like wings. And as he got closer, the girl realized that all she had for her defense was the wee sharp knife. And she pulled it from her pocket, but when she pulled the knife from her pocket, along with it came the blessings of her mother and father. And so she threw the knife along with the blessings at the wizard, and it hit him right in the heart, and the wizard was dead. Well, then the girls heard a great crash from the top of the hill, because the castle, well, it was an enchanted castle, and now that the wizard was dead, all of his enchantments would disappear. And so the girls realized that they did not need to run any longer, so they slowed to a walk. But as they came down the mountain, they encountered a young man, a very handsome young man dressed in fine clothes. "You may not recognize me," he said, "but I am the ragged old man that you gave the pins to. And now that you have killed the wizard, I was under his enchantment, and that enchantment is broken." And so the 3 of them continued on down the path down the hill. At the foot of the hill, they came upon another handsome young man. He was standing next to a shiny coach with 4 fine horses, and he said, "You may not recognize me, but I am the man with the pots and pans that you gave the gold coin to." And so the 4 of them got into the coach, and they made their way back to the home of the 2 sisters. Their parents were overjoyed to see them, and they welcomed the 2 young men into their home as well. And it likely will come as no surprise to you to find out that not long after, there was a wedding, a double wedding. The elder sister married the man with the pins, and the younger sister married the man with the pots and pans. And as far as we know, they lived long and happily ever after. And that is the story of the lass who went out at the cry of dawn.